Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm so glad to be here this morning with you, to worship with you once again. It's always exciting for me and Kathy to come by and be able to visit everybody that supports the children's home. Me and Kathy's been on the road for 2 weeks. We're headed home, get out of this hot weather. It's about to kill me. I'm not used to being hot. We've been up at our daughter's house in San Francisco, and right before we left, the temperature was 113, and that's too hot for me. But the children's home is doing quite well. We are excited to be here to be able to pick up the groceries that you guys have so richly given us. I've looked back there in the room, and we appreciate everything that you have gathered up for us. It will be used quite well. Betty and my wife talked quite a lot, and this last week they've been talking, and she asked if I could do the lesson. Well, I hesitated for a minute because it just I don't know. But I thought about it, and I said, sure, why not? This is about my fourth time to do a Sunday lesson. I'm sorry that the PowerPoint's not working, but I had some good illustrations on it. But I'd like for you to use your imagination. My wife told me last night or this morning, she said, Norman, she goes, don't speak too long. She goes, I know how you can get sometimes when you start talking. You get on a roll and you don't know when to stop. So I promise you I won't keep you here but 2 hours. But I want you to think about this morning. I want you to picture in your head a beautiful sunset. What does a beautiful sunset look like to you? The bright colors, the dark colors, the fading of everything that goes together. But have you ever thought about who made that sunset? We look and we travel. Many of us travel, but we really don't look at our surroundings. The beauty that surrounds us. The lights that are here in Vegas, down the strip, are beautiful. It's amazing what one's mind can do to be able to put something like that together. The buildings are down there on the strip, downtown. The buildings, the arts, the crafts, that somebody had to come and to be able to put all this together. There's only one person that can do that. But we don't think about that. Some of us don't even pay attention to the beauty that we have around us. My topic this morning for just a short time is our God is an awesome God. But we don't think about that. We don't think about how awesome our God is. We just go from day to day. We have a job that we go to. We get up, get dressed, eat breakfast, go to our job, do our job, come back, get into traffic, and go home. Why don't we think about that? Why don't we get up in the morning and look outside and say, thank you, God. Thank you for this beautiful morning that you have provided for me once again. Or look at your kids or your grandkids and say, thank you, God, for my family. You have created an amazing family that I have. But we never think about things like that. I don't think about things like that. I don't look at the beauty that God has given us. In Genesis 1, excuse me for a minute. Get everything together. Genesis 1, chapter 1 through verse 5. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form, and darkness was upon the deep, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. And God said, listen to this, and God said, let there be light. And there was light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness, and he called the light day, and he called the darkness night. And that was the evening of the first day. God created everything. In the beginning, God created. God had purpose for us from the beginning. Each and every day, God has a purpose for us, whether we know it or not. When I was in high school, I graduated, moved to Texas. I lived in Texas for 27 years when me and my wife moved out to Gallup. But I had no idea where God had where my path was going, what God had in front of me when I graduated from high school. I had no idea where I was going to be or what I was going to do. I had a job working for a college, worked for a college for 15 years. And then I went on to another job. And then I went on to another job. But I had no idea what I was doing or where I was going. I was just going where the doors were being opened for me. God opens the door each and every day for each and every one of us. But this one day, God opened a big door for me. My mom lived in Texas. After my dad passed away, she moved back to Texas. She lived with some family members in Texas. And we used to go over there. We lived in Denton, and my mom lived in Bowie, probably about an hour away from each other. We used to go over there and visit with her. Or she would come, we'd pick her up, or she'd come and visit with us for the weekend. Well, one Sunday, she was visiting with me and Kathy at the congregation we were attending. My wife was reading the bulletin, and she hit me in the ribs. She said, Norman, there's a gentleman coming here from Manolito Children's Home. Going to do a presentation here. She goes, is this where you lived? I said, yes. That's where I is. So I grabbed the paper from her. I showed it to my mom. My mom said, I want to be here to meet the gentleman. Because my mom and dad ran the children's home for 25 years. My mom said, I want to meet this gentleman. I want to know what the children's home is like now. So I called Daryl Henderson, was the superintendent back then at the children's home. I called him. I said, made arrangements for them to come over to our house Saturday night before they went to church so they could visit with Mom. They had a wonderful evening visiting, swapping stories about what it was like back then and what it is today. I have no idea where this came from. But I looked at Daryl Henderson. I said, do you need house parents? And his wife looked at me and Kathy, and she said, well, in fact, we do need house parents. Kathy looked at me and she said, I don't want to be house parents. We raised our kids. I don't want to do this. Well, we attended this small congregation before we went on to this big one, and our doors had to close because the people were leaving. So they had all the pews and all the equipment and everything, the teaching equipment, the classrooms and all that. They needed somewhere to take this stuff. So they say, well, why don't we donate all this stuff to the children's home? And one of the gentlemen said, well, how are we going to get it there? Well, Norman's been there, so let Norman take it. So me and Kathy loaded up. We went out there. And my mom, we all jumped in the U-Haul. My mom was 89, I think, at the time. She just jumped right in that U-Haul. She wanted to go. So we came out to New Mexico, the U-Haul, unloaded everything. Me and Kathy was walking around on campus. I looked at her and I said, are you sure you don't want to come here and work? She looked at me and she said, yes, I believe I do. That door that God opened for me, I didn't realize He opened it. But I stepped through that door. And my wife held on to the back of my shirt. And we stepped through that door together. God is an awesome God. He gave me an opportunity to come back where I grew up at and to give back what was given to me and my family. How awesome is that? I go on campus and I look around and memories come back of me growing up. Being around my friends and stuff. Things have changed some, but they're still the same. But it's so awesome. I think about it. It's so awesome that God opened up that door and let me step through it. And I promise you, I have no idea from the beginning when I said, do you need house parents, where that came from. I know where it came from. Because God said, Norman, I need you. I have something for you to do. And I need your help. I need you at the home. We used to travel when I was little. In my house, there was about 3 or 4 of us that traveled with Mom and Dad. And we used to travel all over the place because my dad would speak for the home, do presentations. But he would make it a vacation for us. And we would travel. And we do the display and everything like we do here when we come and visit. My dad would have a slideshow. Me and my brother would be out in the back handing out pamphlets and stuff to the people, get to know them. Mom said, every once in a while I would look at my dad and say, I'm going to come back and do your job. I don't remember saying that. But one person did. One person remembered that, how many times I said, Dad, I'm going to come back and do your job. And God's sitting there. I got you, Norman. I know where I want you now. God has a plan for each and every one of you. God has made each and every one of us awesome. We just have to figure out what it is. And let God take control. Because God is awesome. In Genesis 1:6, Genesis 1:26 and 27, it says, and God said, let's make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowls of the air, and over the cattle, and over all living things, and all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his likeness and image. In his image of God created him, male and female, he created them. God created male and female. God created us. He knew how awesome we were going to be. And He knows how awesome He wants us to be. Like I said, we just have to step through that door and say, God, here I am. Do we have the courage to talk to somebody when we're standing in line at the checkout line? Do we have the courage to look at them and say, do you know about God? Or do we just step back a little bit further away from them so we don't have to say anything? Are we really that ashamed of who we are? That we can't say, do you know about Christ? Are we ashamed to talk to our neighbors when you're out in the front yard and your neighbors are right there and you guys start having a conversation? Are we ashamed to talk to them and say, do you know about Christ? Do you know how awesome God is? Think about that for a minute. Are we ashamed of God? I'm guilty just like everybody else does. I have an opportunity every day to talk to somebody about Christ. I don't do it either sometimes. How is other people going to know how awesome God is if we don't talk about Him? Like the scripture was read this morning for me. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. But God did not send his Son to condemn the world, but to save the world. That is awesome. God sent his only Son to save us. How awesome is that? But we don't realize things like that at all. We just go on with our daily lives like nothing going on. But we never really think about how awesome God is. In Genesis 6, verse 7 and 8, and the Lord said, I will destroy man, who I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. For it repenteth me that I have made them. God is awesome. But at one time, we disappointed him so badly that he destroyed everything. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and God saved him and his family. That's awesome. That one person had enough courage to say, I love you, God, and I believe in you. Can we say that? Can we actually really say, I love you, God, and I believe in you and everything you stand for? That would be so awesome if we could. There's so many stories in the Bible that God has been so awesome. But we don't think about the stories that way. We just read the stories and try to understand what he's trying to do. But we never think about how awesome these stories are. Moses, Samuel and Delilah, David and Goliath, Samson and Delilah, Daniel in the lion's den. How awesome are those stories if we just listen to them? If we just read our Bibles every day, we can get so much out of them. And we could be awesome. Awesome is a big word. It's just like that beautiful sunset. We look at it because it's so beautiful and bright. And it's so awesome. We think to ourselves, how awesome is that? When you see a baby, somebody has a little baby in the mall or at the grocery store, they're in the stroller, and they're right beside you, and you look at them, and they're smiling, and you smile at them, and you start playing with them. Do you ever think about how awesome that baby is? God created that baby. Matthew, Jesus' birth. That's awesome. How awesome can your life be? Or how awesome can you make your life be with Christ in your life? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What is your day going to be like? What are you going to do for Christ? Christ sent his son to die on the cross for you. What are you going to do? Are you going to make that next step, take that next step, and be awesome? Or are you going to just step back? No. Not for me. Not today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. There might not be a tomorrow. Who are you going to talk to Christ about this week? How many of us going to start talking more about Christ instead of being ashamed of Christ? Just think about that this week when you're talking to your friends, your neighbors. Christ wasn't ashamed. Jesus Christ wasn't ashamed when he walked down that road to that cross and they were spitting on him, throwing rocks at him. When they nailed him to that cross, they put the crown of thorns on his head. They whipped him. They spat upon him. And when he was up on that cross, suffering, they put a spear in his side. He wasn't ashamed. That was awesome. Because he walked that road straight and narrow for each and every one of us. He didn't have to. He wanted to. So think about that this week when you're out talking to friends. Can I be awesome today? Can I be like that sunset? Just glow? Can I glow around people and say, I'm a Christian and I'm awesome? Would you like to know about Christ? If there's any reason that somebody needs the prayers of this congregation, or if you would like to be baptized, we would like for you to come down and share in that joy with you. But just remember one thing. how awesome you can be. Thank you for being here. Shall we stand and sing?